Okay, so what if the absolute strangest miracle in the Gospels wasn't really about healing someone's eyes? What if it was actually about revealing a huge, dangerous blind spot in Jesus' own inner circle? We're going to dive into a critical turning point in the Gospel of Mark. It's this hinge moment where a really bizarre healing explains the entire story and totally redefines what Jesus' mission is all about.
So, try to picture this scene, right? The disciples are out in a boat with Jesus. They have just seen him perform not one but two completely impossible miracles, feeding thousands of people with just a handful of bread and fish. You'd think, by now, they'd be pretty sold on his power. But nope. Instead, they are literally panicking because they forgot to pack lunch and only have one loaf of bread with them. It is just an almost comical level of misunderstanding.
So Jesus hears them worrying, and he just cuts right through it with this really cryptic warning. He says, "Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod." And this just completely goes over their heads. They think he's mad about the bread situation. This misunderstanding prompts Jesus to just call them out directly, asking, "Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear?"
So, what is this yeast he's talking about? I mean, it's obviously not about baking. As Dr. Mark Jennings points out, yeast in this context is a really powerful metaphor. It's this corrupting influence that secretly puffs things up and spreads everywhere. The yeast of the religious and political leaders was a whole mindset, one that was obsessed with human stuff. Power, status, signs, traditions, while completely, totally missing what God was doing right in front of them.
And this is where it gets really interesting. You see the two sides of the same coin. The disciples are panicking over a lack of bread. The Pharisees are demanding a big political sign. Both of these things come from the exact same problem. They're focused on immediate human concerns, and they are blind to the divine provision, literally sitting in the boat with them or standing right in front of them. Jesus is basically saying, hey, your way of thinking is getting dangerously close to the way my enemies think.
So, right after this super tense conversation, Jesus performs a miracle. But listen, this isn't just another flex of his power. The way he does this healing is everything. It's like a living, breathing metaphor, a parable in action that perfectly shows the spiritual condition of his own followers. And here it is. This is the crucial detail that unlocks the whole thing. Out of all the healing miracles that Mark records in his gospel, this is the only one that doesn't work perfectly on the first try. And that is not a mistake. It is the whole message.
Okay, so here's how it goes down. Jesus touches a blind man's eyes. But instead of instant 20/20 vision, the guy sees this totally distorted reality. He says he sees people, but they look like trees walking around. I mean, how weird is that? It's only after a second touch from Jesus that his sight is fully, perfectly restored. That weird, in-between stage of blurry vision, that's the key to this whole story. You see, this whole miracle is working like a parable. It's a living picture of the disciples. They're not totally blind anymore. They know Jesus is special, but they are not seeing him clearly either. They are stuck in that blurry, people look like trees stage. Jesus performed this two-step healing to literally show them this is where you are right now, and to give them hope that a second touch, that moment of full clarity, is still possible.
So this new partial sight that the disciples have is about to be put to the ultimate test, and it leads to what's famously known as the Great Confession. But as we're about to see, it's immediately followed by a great, and I mean great, misunderstanding. So as they're walking along, Jesus kind of casually asks them what the word on the street is about him. And they list off a few popular theories. But then he stops, he turns to them, looks them dead in the eye, and asks the single most important question in the entire gospel. But who do you say I am?
And there it is, the breakthrough moment. Peter, speaking for the whole group, just nails it. You are the Messiah. This is the confession everything in the story has been building towards. They can see. They've moved from blindness to at least partial sight. It's this huge, triumphant, pivotal moment.
But just as they're all high-fiving over this new vision, Jesus drops an absolute bombshell. He starts teaching them that being the Messiah doesn't mean glory and overthrowing the Roman government. No, it means he must suffer, be rejected by the leaders, and ultimately be killed. This definition just completely shatters every single cultural and political expectation they had of a Messiah.
And the response is, well, it's just shocking. Peter, the same guy who moments ago correctly identified Jesus as the Messiah, now has the nerve to pull him aside and start correcting him. He literally begins to rebuke Jesus for even talking about suffering. You see, Peter has a very clear picture of what the Messiah should be, and Jesus is not sticking to the script.
Jesus' reply is one of the most intense, severe things he says in the entire Bible. He turns on Peter and says, "Get behind me, Satan." And the reason it's so harsh is because Peter's vision of a powerful, conquering, political Messiah, that's a satanic temptation. It's an alternative script for Jesus' life that's rooted not in God's plan, but in the concerns of man.
And listen to that language. You have in mind merely human concerns. Does that sound familiar? It's the exact same criticism he just leveled against the Pharisees and their yeast. This proves it. Even though Peter got the title right, Messiah, his definition of that word is still completely wrong. It's dangerously human-centered. He can see, but it's still blurry.
So Jesus takes this epic failure, this huge misunderstanding, and he uses it as a profound teaching moment. He gathers everyone around, the disciples and the crowds, to completely redefine not just who he is, but what it means to follow him.
And this right here is the great reversal. The world and Peter, they expect a Messiah who grabs worldly power and crushes his enemies. But Jesus reveals that his path, and if you're going to follow him, your path, is the exact opposite. It's about suffering, being rejected, and taking up a cross, which was the ultimate symbol of Roman shame and defeat.
So at the end of the day, seeing clearly isn't about getting the right theological title for Jesus, it's about understanding and actually embracing his mission. True spiritual sight means we have to abandon the human obsession with power and success and glory, and instead embrace God's completely upside-down kingdom, where real strength is found in sacrifice. And this whole sequence just leaves us with this huge provocative question, doesn't it? I mean, the disciples followed Jesus for years, with blurry vision. They misunderstood him constantly. It really seems that for Jesus, having perfect theological clarity wasn't the price of admission. So if perfect understanding isn't the first step to following him, what is?